This is lesson 5.2 and we're going to be going over area and perimeter of two-dimensional shapes. So in this video, I'd love for you to be able to calculate the perimeter and area of different shapes. But before we do, we need to really talk about, well, what is the difference between perimeter and area? So on the bottom left-hand side, I talked about perimeter, where perimeter is the length around the shape, so kind of like the outside of the shape. And what you do is you just add up all those sides and that's the perimeter. Simple. Now it looks like they didn't give us all the numbers, but we kind of know what they are. So if this tick represents the bottom side, which is 4 centimeters, it should be the same as this tick. So we also know that that's 4. They didn't have to write it, we kind of just know. And so any of them that have double ticks, well, they're going to be the same as this 1 centimeter. So it looks like this also has double ticks, so that's a 1, this one, and this one. So even though they didn't write down all the sides, you kind of knew what they were. Now to find the perimeter, you're just going to add them all together. So 4 plus 4 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 gives you 12 centimeters altogether, and that would be what the perimeter is. On the bottom right-hand side, we're going to talk about area now. So area is not the outside. It's actually the inside or the surface of a shape. Now the surface of a shape we can calculate using a certain formula, but the answer will always look like this. So the centimeters has a little 2 above it, and that's because surface is a two-dimensional thing. So it's not just a length around a shape, it's the surface or the covering of that shape. So that is a two-dimensional quality, and that's why we put the little 2 on the top. Depending on what shape you're talking about, the perimeter and the area will have different formulas. And so what we're going to use is a formula sheet, because I don't really expect you to memorize all these formulas. There's so many of them. So here's what the EQAO formula sheet looks like, and you can use this at any time. Now, we have the different shapes on the side. Okay, so you have to recognize which shape you're using. And then if you want the perimeter, you're just going to use any of these formulas. And if you want the area, you're going to use any of these formulas. Now on the back of this sheet, we have volume. And so volume is actually a little bit different, and we'll talk about it in a different lesson. Notice that all of these shapes are no longer two-dimensional, they are now three-dimensional. Okay, so I'm going to leave this for a later video. Let's just focus on these for now. Okay, so what I have here is our first example, and we first have to figure out which shape this is so that we can know what the formula is for the perimeter and the area. So let's take a look at the EQAO sheet first. Now, is it a rectangle, a parallelogram, a triangle, trapezoid, or circle? So I think what we're dealing with is this one right here. So it looks like it's the parallelogram. And here is the formula. You can either use this one for perimeter or you can use this one. It's up to you. But notice that the perimeter on the top, which I think is a little bit easier to understand, says B plus B plus C plus C. So B plus B plus C plus C, and you see that's just the outside, right? Now the formula for the area is a little bit different. It's A, which is area, equals to the base B times H, the height. Okay? So the height is never this one because it's slanted. No, it's the one that is at a right angle with the, with the base. Okay? So let's use those two formulas and then we will calculate the perimeter and the area. Alright, so the perimeter, like we were talking about before, is B plus B plus C plus C. So there's my B, 10, plus 10, plus 8, plus 8. So you're adding up all the different sides of the shape. And so when you add them up, you just get 36, and don't forget your units, centimeters. All right, now it's a little bit different for the area. Area is base times height, so the base, or the bottom, is 10, times the height. Now the height is the 7 because it's at a right angle with the base. The height is always at a right angle with the base. Okay, so that's 10 times 7, which is going to be 70. Don't forget, very important, centimeters squared. So area is always 2 dimensions. You got to add that little squared. And that's it. That's the perimeter and the area of this parallelogram. All right, let's try the next one. This one, you know, this shape, you know. This is a circle. So let's take a look at our formula sheet where it says circle. Okay, so it looks like for the perimeter, they have 2 different formulas that you could use. One is with the diameter. So this guy right here is the diameter. It's a line that goes through the middle of the circle from one edge to the other. Now, I would use this one if the question gave us a diameter. I would use this one if they gave us a radius, because notice that it says 2 times that weird symbol is called pi, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but there's an r there, which means radius. And the radius is just half of the diameter. So it goes from the middle of the circle to the edge of the circle. All right, and then you also have the area, which is pi times r, your radius, squared. All right, let's take a look at those. Okay, so this is where I'm just going to talk about pi for a second. Pi is a funny symbol that has a number that goes on forever. So it goes 3.1415 and it goes on and on. So what we do is we just use a couple of the numbers, or if you have a great calculator, you should have a pi button. And so that button has lots of the numbers afterwards and is more accurate. But I'm okay with us just using 3.14 just to keep things nice and simple. Now we had said that there were 2 different formulas for perimeter, and it looks like they gave us, this one is the diameter, because it goes from one side of the circle all the way through the middle and then to the other side. So I'm going to use this formula instead of the other formula, which looks like this. Whoops. So that was the other one, which used an R, but since I have a D, I don't want to use this one. Okay, now what does the C stand for? C is the perimeter, pretty much, but with circles we call it the circumference. So we actually don't use the word perimeter, we use circumference, and it's the only shape where we use a different word instead of perimeter. I don't know, maybe it's special or something. So the way that we do it is we take pi times diameter. Okay, so pi, remember, is 3.14 times the diameter of 15, see 15, right? Equals 2, and then we just put it into our calculator, and I got about 47.1 centimeters. All right, let's just clear a little bit of this so that we can see a little bit better for our area. Now, for the area, it's going to be pi times your radius squared. So I'm going to need to know what the radius is because I don't have r. Now remember, r is from the middle to the outside, which means you're going to take the 15 and divide it by 2. So your r, your radius, which is half the diameter, is 7.5. And so that's why you'll notice instead of r, I put 7.5 right there. The pi is 3.14. Okay, so 3.14, which is right here, times 7.5 squared. Now to find the answer, you have to do the exponent first. So 7.5 squared, you got to put that into your calculator first. And you get 56.25. Then you multiply it with the 3.14. And I got an answer for the area of 176.6 centimeters. And don't forget the squared for your area. So notice that all these shapes, all you do is you just follow the formula and you just plug the numbers in. So this shape, let's see. Let's take a look at our formula sheet for number 3. And that one looks like the trapezoid. So this one's a little bit more complicated. The perimeter is A plus B plus C plus D. A plus B plus C plus D. Okay, that's just the outside, right? All right, now let's take a look at the area. So the area, I like to use this one, or you could use this one, it really doesn't matter. So it says in brackets, A plus B first, then times the height. Remember, the height is the one with the 90 degrees. Then you got to divide it by 2. Okay, let's follow those two formulas. So the perimeter, easy. A plus B plus C plus D. So I'm just adding all those sides together and getting my perimeter in meters. Okay, so the harder one is the area. So let's do the area. A plus B are these two sides right here. Okay, so I'm going to add those together first in brackets. Then I'm going to times the height. Now just be very careful. The height is the one at a 90 degrees. So it's the 4, not the 5. So times 4. And then part of the formula says to divide by 2. So do the brackets first for bed mass, add those two together, and you get 35. Times the 4, so the top answer will be 140, and then you're going to divide by 2, which will give you 70 meters squared. Okay, so we're adding the squared like we always do. Now the very last one, number 4, is a little bit tricky, even though we know it's a triangle. What we have to do first before we can find anything is we actually need this length. Because we don't know what one of the sides are, we have to figure it out. And so we've learned this before. This is just Pythagorean theorem, right? Where this is a 90-degree angle, and we have our A and our B. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And then figuring out the Pythagorean theorem, I got C to be 17.5 centimeters. So that is the first step that I'd have to do. And we already know that the triangle is this one. So, to find the perimeter, we're going to add up all the sides, A, B, and C. We know how to do that. And then, to find the area, I'm going to follow the area formula. Or you can use this one, whichever one you like. I kind of like the first one. Base times your height, the one with the 90 degrees, divided by 2. Okay, let's follow both of those formulas for this one. So this is great because we already figured out that side and we don't have to worry about it anymore. So if we do the perimeter, we're going to add up all the sides, 7 plus 16 plus 17.5, okay, which is right here. And that gives me 30.5 centimeters. Now the area formula is going to be your base, so that's the bottom, times your height, which is at a 90 degrees. So 16 times 7 divided by 2, because that's part of the formula too. So 16 times 7 gives us 112, and then we're going to divide by 2 and we get an answer of 56 centimeters squared. Okay, so that is our lesson on both area and perimeter. And I'd like for you to tackle the textbook homework right there.